I've always known there was a hell, but it's never really hit my soul. It's never really gripped me with fear. I've never considered it as my biggest fear. I don't understand why. I've never felt anything about hell, but I just know that it exists. Since I was a little kid to now, I've always had faith that a hell does exist, a heaven does exist, and I want to go to heaven. But hell has never been like the driving force to get to heaven. It's always just been in the back of my mind as a concept, like this is a possibility. Well, yesterday my opinions on hell definitely shifted because I was given a dream about it. To preface, I was not eager to post a video about this at all whatsoever. I was planning on keeping it to myself. I had taken a day to ponder on it because I don't just release dreams because I just want to release them. I talk to God about it first. I don't want any glory to be given to me. I don't want to be just spitting out dreams when they don't mean anything or when they don't send a specific message. So I was just talking to God about it because I didn't want to release anything that would cause confusion. But after pondering on it for quite some time, I realized that this dream was a warning, not just for me, but for girls my age. The beginning of this dream was fuzzy. I don't exactly remember where it started, but I do know that me and many others were in this building with many, many floors. I can't even tell you how many there were, but all I know is that this building was very tall because it felt like the stairs were never ending. As we made it through this building, there were set times for this dot, this little circle, to appear under our feet. This wasn't every second, every moment. This occurrence was spaced out between maybe an hour. And there were two types of colors of dots. There was a green one and there was a red one. If a red dot appeared under your feet, then you would be ambushed and taken away by these slug-like monsters. These demons appeared to be made of nothing but sludge and just tar. There's no way to explain what I was seeing, but they looked like giant chemical burns. They left sludge behind them as they trailed along, and I have no idea what they did to the people with red dots, but if you had a green dot underneath your feet, then you were good to go for the time being. And this occurrence would happen at least every hour within this dream, and it went on for so long until there were just two of us left, me and this other girl. For a clearer description on these sludge-like creatures, they were very lumpy and had warts all over them. I'm not sure how else to explain them other than a deformed frog, if that makes any sense. There was many of them just trailing along the buildings in search of anyone with red dots. It was very disturbing, to say the least. So, when it came down to me and the other girl that had survived this thus far, we were just walking around this place, just trying to figure out what we had to do next. Suddenly, it came time for the dots to appear. And these dots weren't just regular circles. They were more they resembled more like when you throw a pebble into the water and it ripples. It was like a circle with smaller rings around it. Think of a target. So these dots appeared under our feet, and I looked down at hers, and hers was green, and I looked down at mine, and mine was red. Now, I wasn't immediately ambushed like the other people. As I distanced myself from this girl, I looked around, waiting to be ambushed. I felt completely lost in this moment. I was just like, what do I do now? How do I escape this? I have this red dot under me, which means something bad's gonna happen to me. But I didn't need anyone to ambush me because my feet were already carrying me towards the place that I was meant to go. And this calls back to memory Romans chapter 6, verse 16.
Know ye not that to whom ye yield yourselves servants to obey, his servants ye are to whom ye obey, whether of sin unto death, or of obedience unto righteousness?
Whichever God you choose to serve is governor over your body, essentially, and over your choices, over everything that you do. And in this dream, I was basically being carried by my own legs, being betrayed by my own body, because in this dream, I was not shown to be serving the right person. So my legs carried me down this hallway, and eventually I made it to this odd part of the building. There were multiple bridges in front of me, and below them was a gaping hole, just one ginormous pit. These bridges weren't stone bridges, they weren't the normal bridge that you would see out and about. These were bridges that belonged in a factory. And I remember my legs just carrying me onto one of the empty ones. And as I'm standing on this bridge, I'm standing over this giant pit. You can say whatever you want about this entire dream. But as I looked into this pit, it was nothing but darkness, just complete and utter darkness. And somewhere deep within was this pulsing red. And I just knew immediately, right then and there, that this was not normal fire. This, whatever was in there, was alive. Whatever that fire was, whatever that magma was, it was alive. I looked up from the hole, and I looked over onto I looked to my right, and there were a bunch of girls on each bridge. And what shocked me the most about this lineup of people was that most of them were girls my age, at least 14 to 15 years old. I remember locking eyes with one of the girls who appeared to be just an ordinary Chicano girl, and she had little hoop earrings in her ears, and she just looked at me as if she didn't necessarily know what was going to happen yet, and she didn't say anything. Another thing that I noticed about these girls is that they were essentially just naked, but they were covered from their neck all the way down to their feet in just this black oil. It's as if they put on a skin-tight leather suit, except it was just oil, black oil that covered their nakedness, but it was still like close to their skin. So it was very odd, and I was wondering why I wasn't dressed this way. The other girls, they were just standing there, just waiting. So I turned from them back in front of me, and I see this priest-like person, and this thing is much taller than me, and it gave off both masculine and feminine energy. It was the most confusing demon I've seen in my entire life. The reason why I address it as a demonic priest is because he was wearing robes as if he or she were a priest. Its hands were very spindly, very skeletal, and its skin was basically the color of this scarf right here. It basically looked like a corpse. It had a hood on, and the shadow that the hood casted, it just was so thick that you could not see its face. But I knew that its mouth was moving, and I knew it was saying something, but I couldn't hear anything that it was saying. As I looked back to my right, there were these demonic priests in front of each and every one of the girls. And at this moment, I'm still confused. I'm still wondering what's about to happen. And I get even more confused because as I'm standing there, my body begins to morph into those slug monsters that I mentioned before. And what was odd about this was that I remained the same stature that I am now in my spirit, but I had to watch my body melt and morph into this disgusting slug-like creature. And in this moment, I realized that this is what sin looks like. It does not look pretty at all. And I just watched as it, from my spirit, watching my body just completely morph. It was the most disturbing thing I've ever had to witness. I'm not even gonna lie. And as we stand on this bridge, the girls are literally just watching this happen to me, and I'm still confused because I don't know whether I'm spirit or physical. It's just a lot going on. Eventually, I look into the pit again, and it's now brighter with fire, as I don't even know when this took place, but the black pit I was once looking in was now slowly being consumed by fire. The fire it's like it was rising up out of this pit. And it wasn't a normal pit, it was more like a funnel. It was big on the rim, and then it went slowly spiraling down into a funnel. But the flames were climbing up it, and I was just looking down, and I felt this terrible feeling in my gut. The feeling that you receive when you're at the top of a roller coaster and you know that you are about to fall. That was that feeling that I felt in that moment. Another thing that I noticed was that from one of the bridges dangled a rope. It went down for at least a meter into this hole, and then it cut off. It was like that last little bit of hope before you had to free fall into the hole. And to make things even more cruel, this rope was completely covered in oil, so it was hard to hang on to. Without warning, me and all the other girls who were on these bridges were thrust into this hole. We were just thrown in. Each and every one of us had the same idea. We all grabbed for the rope, and we were all squished onto this rope. And for a moment, I was taken apart from everything, and I was looking at them. I was looking at all of them from the third person. Me and these other girls, all hanging onto this rope for dear life. And nobody was screaming. Nobody was screaming. It was like dead silent, except from the noise that came out of this pit. That was all we could hear. And the noise that came out of this pit wasn't necessarily screaming, it was just noise. I do not know how to explain it in English or in any tangible form. I just know that there was just an uncomfortable amount of noise in my ears. And we weren't even like in the pit yet. But as we were hanging on this rope, all you could see was silent terror in everybody's eyes. No one was screaming. Nobody was asking for forgiveness. Nobody was yelling. They were all just terrified. We hung on to the rope for as long as we could, but since it was completely covered in this black oil, we slipped off. And all of us, there was no physical way that we could cling on to one another. We couldn't hold one another. We all dispersed, and we were all falling into this pit. Now, by this point, my body has already regained its form. I'm no longer the slug monster. But the longer I was falling for a really long time. This is not just some short journey. This isn't quick and simple. This was a forever fall. It was like that feeling when you actually go down the hill of a roller coaster. When you're suspended in midair, that terrible seasick feeling. But it felt like it lasted forever. And the longer I fell, the hotter it grew. And I woke up before I could see the horrors, the true horrors of hell. Still in the dream, I woke up. I wake up in the dream. And at my bedside is my mom. And I turn to her and I tell her, I just had a dream about hell. And that's when I wake up in real life. Now, I think that last part is significant because I would not have believed that that was hell had that part of the dream been put there. I am very skeptical about a lot of things. If you want me to believe in something, you have to prove it to me. You have to give me an explanation. And I've done better with that in the years. I've done better putting my faith in things rather than just expecting an explanation every time. But for most things, I need a solid explanation for something. But God made sure to emphasize that this was a dream about hell. This wasn't a dream about some type of catastrophe or some hole in the earth. This was hell. This was hell, and I'm sure of it. And what truly startled me about this was that the line to hell isn't just adults. There are girls my age, and so many of them on their way to hell right now. And this is something that I've wrestled with for a long time, whether or not teenagers can go to hell or not. They're still young. They make so many mistakes. They can't possibly end up in hell. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. I'm here to say that yes, they can. And this is a warning to any teenage girl that's watching right now. Teenage boys too. Any of them. Please work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Because tomorrow isn't promised. And it never has been. You don't want to find out that there's a hell after you died. After you've died. Because once you die on this earth, that's it. Judgment is wrought on your soul. And it's decided whether or not you end up being accepted into the gates of heaven or being dragged down into hell. Usually, I would say I'm not begging you to believe me, but right now, I most certainly am. I'm begging you to believe me because it's very urgent. It's very urgent. I don't want anyone to suffer that fate. And I'm glad that I woke up before I was able to see the true depths of what hell is. As for me and my household, we shall serve the Lord. And I just pray for the youth, that you all get your lives together before your time is up. God bless you.